Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. It is a beautiful Thursday, and I hope that prior to this, you have been able to get outside and enjoy some of the sunshine and just, get some vitamin D from the sun. I know that I've been out there today, and I plan on going back out and taking full advantage of this beautiful weather. So, thanks again for joining me today. My name is Vaughn, and I am a social services coordinator and a member of WSU's care team. You may be thinking, what is the care team? So, I will tell you a little bit. The care team is a collection of WSU staff members who work together to ensure that students' needs are met to promote wellness and academic success. Um, the biggest part of my job is making sure that students feel supported and connected to different resources on and off campus, as well as different programs, things that interest them, things that they want to learn more about. It's my job to help them find those things and get them connected. So today with this video, my hope is that you will know more about depression, kind of being able to recognize the signs within yourself and maybe even your friends too, as well as discuss some of the causes of depression. Even though depression is very complex, and isn't like other illnesses that can be cured. Depression is one of those things that there is no one answer to why people do or don't suffer from depression. I also hope that by watching this video that you would know what to do if you are or think you are depressed, because living with depression is exhausting. I totally can speak from experience. I have dealt with my own anxiety and depression since I was a teenager. I am legally blind, and that has caused, as you could imagine, quite a bit of distress in my life. It affects everything I do every day. There's no escaping the fact that I have profound vision loss, and so for me, I have really learned my triggers and being able to be aware when I kind of feel those things flaring back up and how to get on top of it so that I don't end up in some of the dark places that I've been before. I also hope to help you if you are struggling with the depression, how to manage and move forward. Depression does not have to define who you are. You can take charge, and so that is my hope. I also hope that if you take nothing away from this video, that you would understand that it's okay to not be okay. You don't have to be perfect. We're humans. We're never going to be perfect. But what's not okay is to stay in that place. Reaching out for help is difficult. I also know from experience because there's so much stigma placed around it. You're ashamed, you're embarrassed, you think no one's going to understand. But once you do that and you reach out that first time and realize that you're normal, that you're not weak and that nothing's wrong with you, it is the biggest relief that I or potentially you could ever find. The hardest part about dealing with depression is making that first step. But once you do it, it makes it so much easier for future times if it rears its ugly head again. It makes it just so much easier for you to seek help. Um, and please also feel free to jump in at any point if you have any questions or comments. I would love to see those. So let's get started. What is depression? Like I said before, it's a complex thing, and we don't really know. But experts and doctors have done a great job really trying to put a face to it, if you will. Um, Depression is usually experienced as a consistent or kind of persistent feeling of hopelessness and despair. You just feel down, you just feel blah. You lose interest in things that maybe you enjoyed before. Um, Different hobbies that you liked. Maybe you've withdrawn from friends a little bit. You could be struggling from depression. And this is not the end all be all in terms of depression and what to do and how to deal with it. I will give you the link later on to where you can go onto WSU's website and see the full program that is associated with this video. Um, but depression um, certainly makes it difficult for you to work, to study, to stay focused. Sometimes you can't eat, or sometimes you overeat. My depression makes me overeat. I am a stress eater, that is for sure. And difficulty sleeping. I find that if I'm struggling, I have a hard time falling asleep, staying asleep. And that makes me almost feel worse because I'm just so tired, but yet I can't rest. It is a vicious cycle. So, there are several different types of depression, but I'm only going to kind of hit on a few. First, I'm going to start with clinical depression, or what's called also is known as unipolar depression. And basically, this form of depression is primarily named to distinguish it between bipolar depression, which we will talk about in just a little bit. Okay. There's persistent depression, which this is the category that I fall into. This depression is characterized by an extended period of time of kind of feeling down and blue and just not feeling great. It can go away and symptoms will disappear, but they can also come back. And that's when it's important to know your triggers, to listen to yourself, and when you start to feel those things coming on, be proactive. Don't wait until it gets so bad and you're so down and out that you're just exhausted. Try to stay on top of those feelings and those emotions as best you can. Reach out to friends, reconnect with a counselor if that was something that worked for you. I know for myself, talk therapy has been so crucial to me processing things and helping with my depression. I'm so thankful for the counseling and prevention services. I totally utilized CAPS while I was a student and was able to really get the help that I needed to get out of the rut that I was in, because I'm human, I'm not perfect. And it was nice to put my problems out there, kind of get them out into the universe, and let someone kind of guide me through that. Um, and just helping me to really find me. And CAPS is so awesome. There is also another type of depression is seasonal depression. Seasonal depression is when the time of the year when the time change happens and we're moving into fall and winter, the days get shorter, the temperatures getting colder, and we're kind of forced just to be inside. It's one of those times where people aren't as active. And so seasonal depression usually will go away once spring and all that starts to come back. But if you notice that you do struggle with seasonal depression and you're noticing that it's not going away, again, please, please, please reach out and talk to someone about that. There's also temporary depression. This can be, especially like with what's going on right now with COVID-19 and all the crazy changes that have gone on within the university, with jobs, just with our life in general. We can't go to the mall right now. We can't run to Target to go shopping for clothes. Everything right now is for essentials, and stay at home as much as you can. And I would totally be lying if I said that this whole coronavirus is affecting me. And so I am definitely utilizing the coping skills that I have been given from working with my counselor at CAPS to stay on top of my depression. One of the things that works so well for me is reframing my negative thoughts. And as silly and cheesy as it may sound, every day I try to say, "This is a great day," or "This is the best day ever." And the power of your mind is enormous. If you constantly think negative about yourself or that you can't do this or that, chances are you're not going to get it done because you're beating yourself up and you're just going to get so down. Um, and so really staying on top of those negative thoughts and giving yourself some grace. Um, so the temporary depression, also kind of like seasonal depression, may flare up, if for job losses, we can't go to campus anymore. Everything is online. And I know that that has really been stressful to a lot of students. A lot of students enjoy coming to campus and being in the classrooms and seeing their peers. And now we can't do that. And so temporary depression also, if it doesn't go away in time, please reach out for help, however that looks for you. And also utilizing some coping skills that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. And then bipolar depression is, like I said earlier, different from the clinical depression. Those who are suffering from bipolar depression experience what's called cycling. They will cycle through depression, episodes of depression where they're super low, and then they will have what's called mania, where um, their energy levels are heightened and they can come off as agitated or irritable, reckless. And when they're in those mania phases, they may not need as much sleep, which then has other repercussions that come along with that because we need sleep, we need adequate sleep. And so that's kind of the bare bones of bipolar depression. Um, and so moving on, um, like I said, that wasn't all of the types of depression, and that's not the end all be all. I will give you the link to get more information about what I'm talking about at the end of this. So I wanted to move on to some of the signs and symptoms that maybe you can look for in yourself or your friends. And I just want to say that, if you see something, say something. CAPS uses an acronym called SAS. It stands for Stop, Ask, and Share. So if you notice a friend has become more withdrawn or they're just not as active or bubbly as they once were, ask them, say, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay?" And sometimes those conversations can be really uncomfortable, but sometimes by having those uncomfortable conversations, you could potentially save someone's life. So it is incredibly important, to take the time and stop, ask them how they're doing. And if you're worried about them, please share that information with someone you trust, with a counselor, whoever that looks like for you, to make sure that friend or yourself doesn't suffer in silence. Some of the emotional signs and symptoms of depression could be irritability, anxiety, anger. I know that for myself, sometimes if I'm kind of in one of those episodes, I notice that I'm way more irritable, and I'm not that type of person. I'm normally very easygoing, pretty go with the flow. So when I notice that I'm kind of getting irritable, I'm kind of like, okay, what's going on? I need to check in with myself and see, is something going on? Is there a trigger that maybe I overlooked? Also being fixated on the past. Um, Again, for me, with the diagnosis and when I lost my vision, I just fixated on that. I didn't want to think about anything else. I didn't want to do anything else except for really just dwell in this diagnosis. And I did that for quite a while, and then realized that by dwelling in it and staying in that place of sadness and lots of anger and confusion, I just made things worse because I could cry or be sad or be angry as much as I wanted, but my vision wasn't going to come back. Um, Another emotional sign is if you are having thoughts of hurting yourself or killing yourself. And if you are in that place and you're having those kind of suicidal thoughts, please reach out. There's suicide prevention hotlines. CAPS is a great place to reach out to. Here in our community in Wichita, we have ComCare, and they have a crisis line, and that number is 316 660 7500. There's always someone there to answer the phone. So just know you're not alone. And please reach out if you feel like you're getting into those spaces. Some of the physical signs and symptoms that you may be depressed are insomnia, not being able to sleep, or sleeping too much. You might also have extreme fatigue where you just are so exhausted even though you haven't done anything. Um, and that's a really crappy place to be when you feel so tired, but yet you're tired of being tired. Again, it's just kind of this ugly, vicious cycle. Loss or gain of appetite. Like I said before, I'm an emotional eater. And so I noticed that when I'm starting to eat more, I'm like, oh, okay, again, slow down. What's going on? Maybe something is kind of trying to flare up. Um, and you also may experience unexpected kind of like pains or aches in your body. Depression can definitely manifest physically. Um, you might start noticing like your back is hurting, your jaw hurts because you've been so tense. Those are times maybe to check in with your body and just kind of try to relax them and just, try to loosen things up. And now with some of the causes, and those aren't all the signs and symptoms, there's plenty more. So please feel free to look at the articles that I've included, as well as other resources. Um, some of the causes, again, as complex as it is, there's no cure for depression. I wish there was. Life would be so much easier if we had a cure, but we don't. So some of the causes that may cause depression in some people is abuse, whether that's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse. Those kinds of things are traumatic for people, and unless you properly deal and like cope and process with those things, depression has a funny way of sneaking in and making a bad situation worse. Conflict is another one. That may be conflict with a loved one, with a friend, someone at work, and you just don't know what to do about it. And so that can cause a lot of anxiety and the stress, which then is a perfect storm for depression to sneak in. The death or loss of a loved one, obviously huge. I Many people have lost a loved one, whether that's unexpectedly or it was expected, and it hurts. It's hard. There's something that's just so final about death, and it sucks. It hurts, and so having lost someone is a huge, huge cause for a lot of people who suffer from depression. Genetics is another one. And, if there's a family history of depression, grandma suffered with depression, maybe dad did, siblings, whatever that is, there's a strong correlation to genetics. And, nothing necessarily you did um, caused the depression. It just happened. Major events. And those can even be like happy events, major life changes like graduation, especially right now where, everything has gone virtual and, the 2020 graduates aren't getting to walk across a stage. That could cause a lot of depression. Um, Also, moving or losing a job, starting a job can certainly cause you to experience signs of depression. Um, Causes could potentially be a serious illness. That could be another form of some sort of mental illness, or it could be a physical illness. If you're sick because you have, cystic fibrosis or multiple sclerosis, those things, definitely depression can kind of tag along on those things and make you feel depressed there. Another big cause and component to depression is drug and alcohol abuse. Um, a lot of people will use drugs and alcohol to cope with depression, and all that does is just cover it up temporarily, because eventually you're going to come down or become sober again, and all those problems are still going to be there. Alcohol and depression definitely make depression work, and so if there's one thing that I strongly urge you to do is to stay away from drugs and alcohol. Um, just in general. I realize that all of you are of legal age to drink, and that's fine, as long as it's responsible and you're not doing it to cover up something. Obviously, I don't condone drug use, so just don't do drugs. Okay, moving on. And this is the second section in my discussion, and that is, am I depressed? How do I know if I'm depressed? In the program that you can see on WSU's website, um, the only way to really know if you are depressed is by talking to your primary care physician, to a medical provider, and or a trained counselor. Um, you know, I put on there a few self tests, one of them being through our counseling and prevention services, as well as the Beck Depression Inventory Scale. And there's a couple other online scales that I included in my program to maybe take and try. And if you notice some things, or it says you may be struggling with depression, that might be a really good place to start a conversation with your doctor, because it can be awkward when you go in and hi, what are you here for? I'm depressed. But if you kind of have an idea of what's causing it, or a place to start, that might take off some of that anxiety from you and make the discussion go a lot easier. So let's say that you are depressed. What do you do? I strongly suggest talking to your doctor. And when you go, they will ask you a bunch of questions. And I encourage you, some of those questions you may feel ashamed, embarrassed, uneasy to talk about, but it is so important for you to be honest when they're asking you those questions. Um, and then to discuss kind of some coping mechanisms. If your doctor says, "Hey, Vaughn, I do think that you're struggling with depression," you can talk about different things. Maybe medication is something that is needed for you, whether that's short term or long term. There's many options, and maybe talking to them about some other coping skills. But I have some coping skills that I want to share with you, and it's important to know that the coping skills that I utilize may not be the right combination for you. Depression is one of those things that is kind of unique to you, and you have to find what works best for you. Um, Exercise is a great way to kind of let out some of that energy, just get it out, whether that's going for a nice walk, going for a run, doing yoga, meditating. I struggle with this one because it's really hard for me to turn my mind off. But I try. And if nothing else, I just like to close my eyes and take some deep breaths. I really enjoy sitting outside and the sun and getting fresh air, and listening to the birds. I know that sounds kind of cheesy and silly, but there's something so relaxing about being in nature. So I encourage you to exercise. Photography, take photos. That's one of my coping skills. I love to take photos of nature. I've gotten some really cool photos of flowers and butterflies and different flowers and plants. I've recently been going onto campus and taking my daughter for a walk and taking pictures around campus. We have a gorgeous campus. And so that's been really nice. And, COVID-19 really sucks, but it's given me an opportunity to kind of get back into the things that I loved and enjoyed before. Um, and so also kind of finding the silver lining in all of this. Every day might not be a great day, but make something great about it. Journaling. Journaling is another huge one that may help you. I'm not a big journaler, but I know that it's incredibly helpful for a lot of people. And if that's you, journal on. Keep doing it. Write down those feelings, get them out, however that looks like. Using like some artsy kind of abilities, whether that's drawing, doodling, painting. I enjoy painting. I'm not good, but I love to do it. I love mixing colors and kind of playing around with that. And also, COVID-19 has allowed me to kind of get back into that. Resume a hobby that maybe you strayed away from because you were too tired or just didn't feel like it. Um, whatever that looks like for you, a sport or a group that you were in, try getting back into that. Watch TV, watch something funny, listen to music. Music is my life. I If I didn't have music, I don't know what I would do. Music has helped me get through so many dark times in my life. And the cool thing about music is it's there when I'm down and out. It's there when I'm happy. It's there when, I'm just kind of there. Um, Music is so comforting and soothing to me. Also, you could try some grounding techniques. And one of my favorites is the using your fingers, and you do 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, um, taste, and smell, I think. Basically, all your senses, and you can do them in any order you want. But now that I'm on the spot, I can't do it. But that's a really good technique to utilize just to kind of bring you back. And another one that I really like to do, um, and also may seem kind of funny or silly. But if I'm really stressed out about something, like when I was in graduate school, I had a huge paper and I was just so overwhelmed and didn't feel like I was going to get it done. I would visualize that paper and I would like crumble it up in my mind and then like throw it in the trash, just to kind of get it out of my mind for a little bit. And that really seemed to help. And now moving forward with depression, like I said, there's no cure, and I know that really stinks, but it's not impossible to live with depression. Um, Being in tune with yourself and knowing knowing when you're starting to feel those kind of signs and symptoms, when you realize that you're withdrawing from things that you once enjoyed, when you start to sleep too much, having trouble sleeping, um, you start eating a lot, whatever that is, stay in tune with you and stay on top of it. So, I really, really thank you all for being here with me today. I hope that you gained something from this. You can find this video and the program that I created at wichita.edu/depression and coping. Also on there are a list of several different articles that I compiled that may be some good reading for you. Oh, that's another good coping skill, reading. I love to read, so I do that a lot. And then there's also a link to some self-care and isolation tips and techniques. Our very own Tara Hanna put that together and did an excellent job of different things that have been offered during this COVID-19, some of the virtual tours at national landmarks, at the zoos, different things like that, museums. So I encourage you to check that out. Again, I really thank you for tuning in with me today. And if there's ever anything that myself or the care team can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help you, and we want to help you be successful academically and personally. So thank you guys. Take care. And that's all I got.